That face when he give good dick! The Watchers, they dead. The Watchers, they sing.
Hey, how's the game going?
La 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 la. La 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 la.
So, Drakengard, huh? Allegedly a series of video games, functionally an elaborate torture machine, this Dynasty Warriors meets Ace Combat franchise is the brain demon of infamous developer Yoko Taro. I don't talk much about individual devs, but Taro's vision is central to the big picture of Drakengard, or Dragon Dragoon as it's known in Japan. Two things. I'm aware that reviewers have a tendency to imply that a single dev is responsible for a game, and I know Taro is not the sole writer for the games he worked on. But we're focusing on Taro for expediency because, frankly, it's time to face the music, sir, for your crimes against voice actors. What will the verdict be?
Oh, but I just love getting sweaty and sticky.
The other thing is, full spoilers going forward, but I really do think your average person should just watch the cutscenes online, or a review. Now, patrons funded this by reaching a goal. Far be it from me to divine the intentions of my mysterious benefactors. Do they mean good or ill? How can something so helpful hurt this bad? Do you people enjoy this? This is part 1 of the Drakengard and Nier full series indoctrination. I mean review. Drakengard! No, really, the palette's washed, the light's dim, and it's a bit... yikers. In parallel dimension Europe, where goblins, fairies, elves, and trolls are kept in check by a mostly united Europe, the continent is plunged into chaos as the good-aligned Union faces an evil empire. Oh, and the United Nations of Europe rebranded as Midgard. Well, from a literary standpoint, we are going places. Drakengard's a game you might enjoy if your brain looks like this. Or this. And I don't mean the story, right? That's okay. I mean everything that happens between you and that controller really, really drags. Oh, I get it now. Setting aside the alternate Earth lore dressing, the major premise is that two beings, presumably of different species, can enter into a pact and become soul bonded. Apparently it can heal you of your wounds. Apparently you can pull your soul out if you want to. Apparently a lot of things, because the full extent is never explored or explained, and it's mostly ignored for the sake of convenience. How's that literary standpoint going? Places, I hope. The game intros with a boring battle, but really begins with a pact between a young murder boy and his dragon. If only it stayed that simple. The game flows between several segments in any given chapter. Somehow, nigh oxymoronically, its strength is varied gameplay, though it's known for repetitiveness. Except, in truth, it's comprised of small break sections and the meat. Turns out the meat's a real thick ribeye, and you gotta tenderize that juicy bastard exclusively with your gamer thumb. This stuff kills me. Like, guys, game devs, aren't you 30-ish? Even late 20s, do you not feel thumb damage when playing your own mashy games? Do you know how much your game hurts? So the segments. There's a number of little top-down sections where you mostly run to the end. You can even ignore the enemies. They lead to text cutscenes. Sometimes they're fun. There's aerial segments where you blast a bunch of stuff until you win. Not gonna lie, best parts of the game really make you feel... Sorry. Little gamer trope sickness. We have fun here. And the schmeat. Ground combat's just... You want me to say sucks, so you can tell me to piss off in the comments, don't you? The crickets in the walls are chirping and I hear what they say. Ground combat sometimes takes 40 real-life minutes to get through, and you have a basic combo, a couple jump attacks, a running attack, and some magic.
Fun? Maybe that describes it. Who knows?
It may as well be a weaker Dynasty Warriors. Sorry, Dynasty Warriors. It ain't fun, and everyone's gross. Let's talk characters. Probably should have TW'd the unholy f out of this vid. I mean, gee, what didn't they put in? We got murder, incest, mental abuse, talk of side, philia, zoophilia, baby eating, necrophilia, child killing, ripping off Evangelion for a meme. Whoops, they made a whole spin-off from that. Yeah, not for the faint of heart. So the protagonist, Kaim. How to describe him? He's somewhere between Guts and Devil Boner. Yeah, I'd say that clears it up. He's mentally ill. Kaim is never without Angelus, his Red Pact partner. Despite extreme differences, the pair partnered up to live. Angelus is probably the best character with the best lines and believable character development. Shame for the other characters. Now, Pact partners, but I think only the humans, have to give something up for the Pact to be ratified, and Kaim lost his voice. So we're spared any insane murder babble. I respect it. Furii is Kaim's sister, and Taro's answer to boring women in video games, but I'll bring it up later. Her once betrothed and friend of Kaim is Inuart, the bard, who was effectively cucked by religion, so Furii could be the goddess slash seal slash escape Inuart, which only ends well. The actual party characters, the one who you can call on in battle, are all pact partners. So rapid fire: guy who lost his sight, woman who lost her womb, kid who lost his ability to age. Sucks, less sucks, but still pretty bad when you think about it.
You just turned blind, Leonard. You're not the blind swordsman.
Now, Ariosh wants a baby in her, so she goes around trying to eat babies. It's like her only character trait. She's not even one-dimensional. We're talking 1 point on the sheet. Approved! Oh, and her pact beast doesn't matter. Now, Leonard, the Nard dog. Leonard, I'm not playing your made-up translation rules. Well, Leonard was jacking it in the forest while thinking about kids. Marinating on this. And when he came back, his village was torched. So a fairy says,
That's it! Kill yourself!
And they forge a pact. Bleak. Approved! Sarah is the last character to join, a child who conveniently hugs Leonard at about crotch level. Approved!
YouTube actually assigns ad values by video, digitally reads and interprets your script. Gotta flag your own content, which helps determine ad rates. So anyway, I'm fucked.
Sarah made a pact with a golem and is mostly a burden. Not even a joke kid hit can cheer me up. Anyway, these diverse and wacky adventuring pals are joined by Vertile, the priest, who made a pact with something that never appears and lost his hair in the process. Vertile is useful for chastising Kaim, the player, over murder, and introducing the verified by lore fact that pact partners can telepathically communicate by tuning into Pact Partner FM, as long as they're not too far away. Presumably this was done so the silent Kaim wouldn't exclusively be bothered by his sneering dragon. Unfortunately, she's also the funniest character, and everyone else is annoying, one-dimensional, or a boring scold. Everything the party does is done to defeat Mana, the leader of the cult of the Watchers, effectively the emperor of the Empire, and Sarah's sister. I don't think a game has ever deliberately asked me to kill a child. Taro, could it be? You understand? Now, before blowing the lid off this thing, I want to take a sec to talk mechanics and nerdy stuff. Drakengard gives you a bunch of weapons to level up, like the RPG it is. Drakengard lets you block attacks and dodge roll. Drakengard has a little mechanical depth, but, well, that's a bunch of crap, because you don't need anything but jump attacks. And I'm serious, like, okay, do what you want against whatever, it's not impossible, just annoying. Gotta wade through a lot of guys. Oh, fuck! And it's daunting how many dudes the game's willing to throw at you. I mean, my weapon has a pretty big AoE, I'm sure we'll... No, the only fights that should set you back are the Chaos Dragon and the floating babies. Look, we'll talk in a sec. Just the most fun I had in this very long playthrough was figuring out that jumping strong attack roasted the dragon and flailing wildly with jumping light swings decimated the babies. That's it. That's the peak. Email me hundreds of your dollars for hot game tips. How do you talk about the story? It's simple. The characters go through the story, doing the things, and the world keeps falling apart regardless. More monsters, more bodies, more weapons, fewer friends.
Welcome to a world without song. Die, die, die!
Shut up. The world turns into a hellscape. Kaim flies to Mana's lair, confronts the girl, and then we finally kill the kid. Oh my god! Come on! This is it, people! Giant child dragon shoot! Why do I play video games? Ah! Oh yeah? Taro's games are infamous for their many endings, but you know what? They tell you exactly how to get to them, and usually it's not that bad. It tends to give you new perspectives on characters, open up side stories, and new endings. Only, this is Drakengard. You know what that means? What do you mean Kaim's killing kids? They put child soldiers in a video game? And he's killing them? Someone approved this? Okay, it says here that Furii never loved Inuart and only really loved her brother. I didn't know you could even have incest in video games? Bah, typical English censorship. Oh, don't do that! Jeez! Oh my god, we doing this for real? Yo, mulch that pasty dish-faced cretin! Okay, we got floating stone babies. Careful, Ariosh. There's way too much cholesterol in those babies. Oh! Yo, is she the Gregnant? Is she the Gregnant? Oh, I need to collect every weapon in the game and level them up to unlock the final ending that spawned near.
Hey, pull up some random LP and link them in the description. I did that. That was me. I did that!
You know, as a newcomer to Taro's creative vision, I was struggling to understand the purpose of the work. I'm not trying to call the guy a hack, obviously, but I have questions. Taro has fans, and I mean Taro, not just Drakengard, because of his creative vision. So let's talk. The game's got emotional moments, not many for me, but the ending with Angelus that demonstrated character development, you know, that was a vibe. The game has little details like stories for each weapon, even breaking down different sections of the chapters into verses, infusing song or poetry into the aesthetics. Every part of the universe seems alien and unknowable. It sucks the player in wanting to know more, maybe because it plays with subjects beyond anything a normal game would broach, maybe to get to the next insane bit of dialogue. And despite Taro's obvious interest in dark subject matter, the canon ending is hopeful. Part of me wants to read the story as cynical and unlovable. Each party member was more or less devoid of meaningful development. It's almost like they were made to be unsatisfying one-note facets of contrarianism. That is, many are trope subversions, but they barely rise above it. And yet, here's a fairly charitable take on a file who gets spiritual redemption via self-sacrifice for the world. I think Taro wanted to convey a universe that was fundamentally damaged, maybe beyond repair, but worth preserving regardless. There's something in that. Okay, let's make this a speed bump like a fat raccoon you hit going 90 on the 40 at night, and you'd feel bad, but it turns out the raccoon was the DMC reboot. So Taro was screwing around at Square one day, making a lot of noise as usual, and they took his toys away while he wasn't looking. Very poor sportsmanship overall, fellas. Let the boy have his toys. Taro was busy with other projects, and Drakengard 2 got handed to some other guy who probably doesn't even have a fan. Jeez. So he got credited as the video editor and was creatively involved, but didn't get final say on the whole. At first I was mystified by fan dislike for this one. I mean, I'll tell you straight up, I didn't find the first game uniquely compelling. Like, yeah, it's the most, wow, really? They did what? Game I've ever played. It's inherently remarkable, but between gameplay and story, I struggled to love what it was. Feels more like Buddy got away with murder than penning the next great video game, but after playing this, Drakengard 2 improves the gameplay in a few places, tanks it in others, and more or less tears the limp, skewered spirit of the series out through its throat, and parades it around for fun. It's a tortured shell of its former self. The scenario is super simple. Same world, but nearly 2 decades older, and this kid, no way, is definitely a normal human. And that guy definitely isn't a bad guy. Anyway, the bulk of the plot is a slow turnabout narrative. What if the bad guy, the good guy? What if the good guy, the bad guy? What if I cared? Some of the gameplay shakeups are missing, and we're left with the big old schmeat levels and the flying segments. The flying is touchy and gets extremely annoying and difficult by the end. The first game didn't put too much in the air that could earnestly trip you up, but believe me when I tell you that this time, they're packing heat.
I'm sorry, fighter jet!
The ground levels, though. You know, the last game wasn't great. Drakengard 2 opted for puzzles and platforming, and none of it is really hard, but that for sure does not make it good. Most of it's spent whacking dudes, which feels cleaner overall, and jump attack supremacy still applies. But it's still pretty stiff, and the dash attack's gone. That was half the fun of the last game. Still, every level's a micro-content piece. They don't usually drag forever. The major shakeup is party members, cause Noe isn't talented and can't swap on a dime between different pieces of metal, so you'll rely on your friends, often temporarily. So please find a good sword and don't worry too much after that. They're actually set up so their unique weapons pulverize very specific enemy types, so they're always useful, and you don't need to invest too hard. So the characters. Oh yeah? Just like that? See, Mana didn't die in the canonical ending. She was kept alive to atone for her crimes that she really didn't have much say in. She was corrupted by superhuman deities and abused by her mother. But go off, Kime. Hold that little pap smear to account. That's justice, baby! So the entirety of the evil empire was divided into districts and subjugated by the Union. Mana included. You can imagine where that ends up going. Noe himself is a total bummer. I mean, really, Kime killed kids for sport. Kime drank the blood of the innocent. Noe fights poverty people and just rambles, justifying his awful class traitor behavior to himself like, boo boo boo, justice, I think, boo 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 boo. Shut it up, bitch! Legna, unimaginably clever, guys, is extremely important, but not yet. For now, he's the only rational and witty character, as it goes. Unfortunately, the majority of the characters just, whatever, man. Eris is a lawful, stupid paladin type who just can't believe that Noe would end up siding with the oppressed and running off with that blonde hussy. Really, Eris? Really? You can't believe that this young man would run off seeking warmth? Why lawful good isn't very endearing in this case? Gizmor, the head of the justice doers, is literally just evil. Like, he's got a semi-compelling backstory, but he's played up so cartoonishly evil, any sympathy kind of melts away. Mana's a great character, a more filled-out version of what we originally got, until she goes stupid.
The gods love children who love gods. That's why I'm loved, even though I'm such a bad girl.
And Yurik is here. Oh yeah, now we're back in Drakengard territory. His secret is so diabolical, you'll never believe what they put in this time. Yurik might be gay. Like, as though that could even matter at all. So daring. Granted, I'm sure for some weirdos that was a whoa moment, you know, respective to the time period, but like, I'm sorry. Literally Leonard. Well, this doesn't sound at all like Drakengard. Where's the connection? Where's the crazy stuff? Don't worry, turns out Kaim's back with Angelus, and they're both totally deranged. And we're gonna undo their characters for the sake of drama. I clap. I applaud. The bravery! And all these idiots do is waltz about the land undoing the seals that require human sacrifice to uphold, killing a pile of idiot pack partner generals in the process, who... yeah, no thanks. Dead, dead. This fight is stupid!
Just kidding, use jump attack.
Boss fights are pretty tough overall, and honestly, the game picks up a lot partway through with events involving Yurik, Kaim, Gizmor, and Sarah. I don't think they're worth individual comment, but to be fair to any fans of this installment, it does get a disproportionate amount of bile hurled its way. It's lower key, it's lower rated, but it's not totally worthless. An attempt was made. Before we get to the end, though, can I talk nerdy stuff again? Part of why I like the combat is the parry system, something you didn't do in the first. And the enemies more or less force you to parry if you want to win, so you end up feeling pretty good about yourself and your skills by the end. It's not even that difficult, gives flashy sparks. Nice. But the weapons. Like, grinding was rough before, your weapon couldn't level up mid-combat, but here it takes so long. I was grinding weapon levels by chanting upwards of 500 hits on enemy soldiers for an XP boost so I could have a useful weapon. My real mistake was looking up a guide, finding a cool sword, whoops, it's the Nobuyoshi, because of course I did that, and it's funny, but every time I leveled it up, it got weaker. That's weird. One out of how many? So anyway, I had to grind that iceberg down to actually start damaging enemies. I'd say my thumb enjoyed that. Now this game has endings, just like before, so big reveal time. Once upon a time, Inuart took Fury Eye's corpse to the, quote, bone casket.
Oh, I know plenty about that bone casket.
And did an uh-oh, and now Noe is the child of the man with the dragon pact partner and the goddess slash seal bearer. And people say there's no Taro in this game. This new breed is presumably supposed to wipe out mankind, but that's stupid. So instead we save everybody, including Mana, who went crazy, so we jacked into her skull a la Mega Man Battle Network and pummel the child. And Legna's a very naughty boy. Shame on you, Legna. And that's it. You want the other endings? I hope you enjoy playing bad action games 3 times through. You don't like that? What a coincidence!
Hey everyone! As you know, we've had a ton of fun playing Drakengard, and now we're gonna play 3!
How do you describe Drakengard 3? Maybe something like this? Oh my god! Shut up! I blasted through the main story, the side branches, the DLC, and the final ending! Was it worth it? Not for a second! Okay, mild exaggeration. It had some moments that made me think, hey, good job guys, but to be fair, they were all DLC, and that's not the place you want to be! Drakengard 3 is a demonstrably better game than its forebears in terms of raw gameplay, even when the FPS drops to less than 2. Oh god. Oh my god! Because at its worst, it's a boring, unbalanced masher, and at its best, it's awesome.
Oh, give me the damage, baby!
It's almost totally stripped of extras, streamlined for convenience, and even the grinding is offset if you're doing the DLC. It's very much a game of rushing between story cutscenes, though, so for any kind of aspirational design or variance, I think only those allergic to cutscenes should play it. And you might have picked up that I'm a little excited here, in spite of everything, and I am, because your boy Taro's back in the gamer chair, and let's be clear, there will never be another Drakengard 3. It's a totally unique package. It might be one of the single worst experiences. One of the schlockiest, trashiest games I've ever touched. That ain't nothing. That takes raw talent to produce. So premise time. The game's set a century before the first, which is great because it's completely tonally borked. A little breathing room helps. Zero and her sisters, named 1 through 5, are all intoners. Magical girls. For real though, it's not a joke. That have superhuman strength, use song to call on giant monsters with the help of a disciple, and need constant relief in the nether regions with their disciples.
Said without a hint of irony, I can feel my soul leaving my body.
So Zero goes to kill them all for some reasons with her dragon Michael. Gets blown up, Michael dies, and gets reset to factory settings. And the adventure to paint the land red begins. There's only one problem. Mikhail, the young Michael, is very baby. Gameplay. So you do a lot of levels back to back. They're exactly one notch tighter than the levels of yore, probably because of the walls, but they get old quick. The color choices are sometimes okay, but the game's a lot to look at, like overly bright, minimal contrast, way too many effects, and splatters. Yes, you can turn the blood off. No, you can't cure the performance. On occasion, you ride Mikhail. These suck, like bad Star Fox levels. Great, fantastic. Alternatively, you can ride him in a few levels, and it controls surprisingly well. It's pretty meaty and fun. Of course, you collect weapons, but getting back to basics, Zero uses them all herself. Occasionally, you're forced into the spear and the chakram in the main game, and the fists are a welcome change of pace. God, I never get tired of that. Oh, and your friends. Friends. We're gonna have to talk characters now. What happened, guys? Used to write semi-compelling cardboard. So what happened, guys? You know, credit where it's due, I like Zero. She's awful, just reprehensible in almost every way, but she gets development. We get to see the snark screen evaporate a few times. Not bad. Mikhail is literally the only consistent force for good in the story. He's a charming character, except for the totally unnecessary wyvern racism that we're chalking up to dragon blood memory. Kind of a blemish on a non-cynical element, but I respect the need for dimensions. But those disciples, though? Dito, Five's disciple, horny for blood, guts, gross and sadism. Dorito Boy's a direct subversion of his uwu soft boy appearance. It's not terribly endearing. Decadus, Force disciple, a middle-aged brawler and perfect gentleman, except for the endless, unbearable masochism grunts. Okay, that's enough! Would you quit? Scent, 2's disciple, an annoyingly attractive man and perennial idiot, only likable with DLC. Hard pass. And Octa, the disciple with the biggest member, known for nigh exclusively mentioning gets caught putting it in every depraved place and literally measuring his art mid-battle. Also, he's 22 and intercourse aged him. I'm so unbelievably tired. They're all awful. They had the chance to make compelling characters with stories. Chose awful. Spoilers, they're just doves made human. It almost makes sense that they're one-dimensional idiots, but damn. And it gets in the way. There's a couple scenes where it's obvious Zero feels totally isolated in the world. Doesn't count anyone among her friends. You almost feel something for their loose camaraderie, which, like, she goes around murdering their pump pals, so realistically, their relationships should be somewhat strained. And they blow every last bit of goodwill on Pulitzer-worthy. As for the rest, it's just, how did Nier and Drakengard 3 come from the same creative vision? The actual events of the plot here almost don't matter, and certainly any importance is blurred by the constant alternate endings. Like, you can be sure that whatever character you're focusing on is gonna bite it in at least one of the endings. You watch so much awful crap happen to these people. You have to go online to figure out what's canon and what's just for fun. The entire game deliberately tanks the general integrity of Drakengard's convoluted but constantly dark conception. You might as well chalk the story up to cutscenes. It's good for a watch and a laugh, but the constant vapid nonsense, fourth wall breaks, total annihilation of every character in different ways. I don't get some epic Kino feel, as the youth say, right? I'm feeling like nothing matters. And that's the last place you want to be. You could say it's in line with Drakengard 1, cynical on the face but hopeful. I just think the fountain's too riddled with blood, piss, and cum to enjoy the drink. Unless you like that kind of thing. Maybe you're thinking, but you said combat, sometimes fun. Yeah, well, by the time you're past the main story, the difficulty jumps in weird ways. A lot of it is easy, no trouble, but sometimes, what? So you figure that jumping aerial into dash cancel beats like 90% of the game, and you do that forever. Oh! Honestly, any enjoyment the gameplay brings fades by the end, as you constantly run through old areas, doing more menial tasks and fighting the same like 8 or so mini-bosses in increasingly annoying combinations. The saving grace is the DLC, which coincidentally costs too much money for far too little and is, generally speaking, comprised of reused assets. But let's not lose hope. I haven't talked about the Intoners yet, and their DLCs kinda matter. So let's go. 5 gets a little more backstory. She's not just a food and crazy sister creeper, she's got questions about the nature of humanity and happiness, but just ends up eating a giant crab.
Oh, yes.
I hate everything about this. 4 gets outed as not only a virgin and generally toxic individual who places far too much value on outward appearances. From 4's letters. Your turn, 5. You're the only little sister I have, but you act like this bitter old lady. Oops, sorry. Did that sound harsh? It's totally what everyone thinks, though. And seriously, the way you throw those fat globules of yours around? Disgusting. But she also commits genocide on the elves because one asked her to, and it isn't manslaughter. Really glad she gets the funny death scenes. 3 is not very interesting, except for the end of her story, wherein it's revealed she's been experimenting on humans, killing 56 people and driving a permanent divide between her and Octa. This one's okay. Oh, and hey, she named her 2 experiments and piss. Epic. 2 might be the only one really worth the price of admission, frankly. In the main game, her brain's broke because she couldn't handle her power or something, but turns out she's mentally destroyed thanks to her past, in which one of the worst characters becomes likable and she becomes incredibly sympathetic. It starts happy, there's some foreshadowing with her happiness apparently overflowing like a cup running over, and she needs reassurance for that. This is smart and good writing, by the way. A problem then arises and her compassionate life project, her orphanage, is destroyed in a single day. It's not bad. 1's DLC is something, I guess.
Because aren't allowed to.
Oh yeah? You just wait 100 years and we'll see how well humankind absorbed that particular wisdom. Also, you fight one of the only bosses with a mechanic. Hard to believe. Shame she can't handle basic kiting. Zero's is some stuff about Michael, I don't know, I'm not really a fan of the lore. Now, the entirety of the game culminates with the real final boss of the final chapter, the flower. See, the flower appeared on Zero and won't piss off, even birthed the other Intoners. Turns out to be a disease of the Watchers of some degree that won't let the bearer die, instead causing them to their whole selves should they meet death. I think the story has such a hard time working because the idea that the sisters are somehow controlled by the flower, and that its intentions are ultimately to destroy humanity, etc., is not clearly conveyed or understandable. Like, the sisters are controlled remotely or by virtue of their origin as flower-birthed people. It's really unnecessarily high concept. You can do an apocalypse story without the endless spells and whistles, without creating a totally confusing and player-hostile environment where they're forced to grind away and do their homework to figure out what's going on in your game in plain terms. Like, sure, leave room for speculation, but make sure the thing is understood. It's my issue with Drakengard overall. Sure, blame the other writers too, but Taro's involvement is extensive. He's the one who presses square for his inclusions. I kept reading this bit about his backwards script writing being a technique he uses to write stories, his signature thing. And as a writer, my first thought was, well, doesn't everyone start with some end in mind and write steps in? At least sometimes. Like, it's not some ancient sealed technique, man. I feel like this stuff gets mythologized about beyond belief. But maybe he's earned that mythology. Nobody's really been as bold as often as Taro. It's where the work finds its worth. Granted, I get it with Nier, but this isn't that video. I still don't understand how the creator of this made that, because Drakengard 3 has decent moments, but unlike with Nier, it can't bring me to care. Maybe it's all the tack, I don't know. I started out not understanding the love for Drakengard 1, but it may be the best of the lot in terms of story clarity and payoff, in terms of somewhat likable characters and a vision less convoluted by far in spite of the insanity. Its spirit lives in Drakengard 3, but it's weighed down by so much self-referential humor, fourth wall breaking, disgusting garbage. I'm not even a prude, I just feel like I'm getting teabagged here. It's so unbearably cynical, and even a crumb of something pure and good, any kind of hope that you could find in a child murder game, is locked behind this ridiculous rhythm game. Do you have to rotate the camera like that? I can't see! Fuck! Hey, it's KBash. Special thanks goes out to my $4 patrons, whose names are on the screen. The show's on its way somewhere good thanks to the community's generosity. And special thanks goes out to my extra generous patrons who are... Andy Blarg, Azero, Basement Dweller, Boha, Brandon, Brios, Cal, Can I cuss on here? Caesar T, Cordant, Chris A, Cody Golden, Corgi the Lad, Couch MOBA, CW Glassworks, Kyle Lapreed, Daddy Dagoth, Dakota Storm Jones, Dondium, Danky Stank Swanky Make, Dara, David Castillo, Den Het, Dylan Coffee, Annex, Aesthetico, Exa, Frankenstitch, Glyph Seeker, Guard Corey, Gucci Plant, Hatsune Miku's Crack House, Harkaj, Heeman Gamin Station, Huey, Ingenious Clown, Irradiated Cherries, Ice Kyle, Jason Lasky, Jaden, J-Deus, John Weber, Joke Frog, Keegan Too Cool, Keith Myers, Clocked, Creighton, Crazy Dark Chocolate, Latrix, Laundry Mom, Lego Sid, Loki, Lawn, Magical Madman, Markules, Maximilian Wolfgang Niver, Milky Moo Official, Mitchellanius, Mr. Dodongo, Nito Torpedo, Old Burgle, Old Man Cranberry, Only LK, Pink Peacock, Quasar McDougal, Quinn, Reasonable Willow, Reggie Rodriguez, Ricochet Frame, Sagitrash, Siren Smells Good, Salty Smasher, Sekai no Awarida, Shod, Simp God, Slagathor, Sleepy Wabbit, Special Children, Spooky Grimalkin, Squishword, Sublime Cataclysm, Super Katsanova, Super Sandwich Guy, TFY Lex, The Big Bubby, The Salt Knight, They Call Me Gambit, Thrips Heartrop, Travis Edwards, Twiddle Chungus, V01156, Venom, Vice Pup, Viewers Like You, Vic, Walter Taggart, Waposa, Weeb Trash, Well Shit, Yay Kundo, Zachary V, Zanaso, Zane the Impure, Zane the Pure, Zed Slayer Gamer. If you'd like to help support the show and make it even better, check out my Patreon. We've got all kinds of goals and lots of rewards in store. Stay tuned for more. KBash out.